All right. It looks like just about everyone is in. So again, welcome to GlideFast on Air. I'm Janet Mesh. I'm the VP of Marketing here at GlideFast Consulting, and I'll be moderating today's webinar, CSM in Higher Education, the Boston University Solution. And I'm very excited to introduce you to our presenters. We have Tiffany Royer, ServiceNow Developer and Service Delivery Manager at GlideFast Consulting, and Top Tanti, ServiceNow Architect and Service Delivery Manager here at GlideFast. But before we get started, we'd like to give you some background information on GlideFast. So GlideFast Consulting is a consulting firm that is dedicated exclusively to ServiceNow. We're an Elite ServiceNow Partner, and our expert team of developers and architects have worked on both sides of the table, so on the customer side and on the consulting side. Our company was actually founded by ServiceNow architects, and we're very proud to have a team of over 100 experienced consultants that have a wide range of certifications. We have an average CSAT score of 9.6 and more accolades that you can see here on the screen. So before we get started, we will be monitoring the Q&A, so definitely throughout today's sessions, feel free to send some questions over to Tiffany and Top, and we'll make sure that there's time at the end to go through all those questions. So feel free to send those over, and we'll leave time for them to talk through those live. And as another perk of attending today, we'll be giving away a $50 Visa gift card. So if you stay on till the end of the webinar, we'll be announcing that at the end of the session. So definitely, stay on. There's going to be a really excellent presentation. We have lots of great information, a live demo. So looking forward to that. So with that, I will be handing things over to our presenters to dive in.
I am Tiffany Royer. I'm a ServiceNow developer and delivery manager. I've been working on the platform for about 2.5 years, and I've worked on various implementations in the federal and commercial space.
Hi everyone, my name is Top Tanti. I'm a ServiceNow architect and delivery manager. I've been working in ServiceNow for about 6 years or so, and primarily focused in CSM implementations for about the past 2 years. And then our customer, which this presentation is based on, is Boston University, and more specifically the Financial Affairs Department. So we'll go ahead and just jump in here. Prior state problems. So what problems were we trying to solve? What issues did Financial Affairs have? The biggest issue here was that they had about 7 different shared mailboxes for 4 different groups, or 4 different groups supporting those mailboxes. They were receiving upwards of 10,000 emails per month. These emails came from vendors, potential customers, and also internal BU personnel as well. And then, as you can imagine, trying to track your work, manage your responses, really any kind of question management, case management through email is just not efficient, not ideal. They did send out a survey, and the respondents of the survey expressed their huge dissatisfaction on responses and response time. The Financial Affairs, they weren't able to provide a specific response time for their customers. They couldn't guarantee that responses were even being sent back to their customers because, again, they're just working strictly out of email. In addition to that, the emails were also going to the incorrect groups as well. So if you think about it from the customer side, if I have some business with Boston University and I know 2 or 3 different email addresses, I'm not quite sure which one to send it to. Most likely I'm going to send it to either one or maybe all of them, right? But my expectation is that that email is going to get routed to the correct person, and I'll see a response in my inbox eventually. So on the customer side, not a big deal, but for Financial Affairs, they're getting emails from different, or getting emails into different mailboxes to the wrong mailbox. They have to figure out where it goes, and that just slows down the overall response time and overall customer satisfaction. So what the request from Financial Affairs, Financial Affairs they were already familiar with ServiceNow. Boston University's IS&T, Information Systems and Technology Department, was also using ServiceNow for ITSM, as well as an internal self-service portal. So being familiar with ServiceNow, Financial Affairs was already interested with ServiceNow as a platform. They also talked to a couple other organizations. You can see here on the right-hand side, American University, who uses the CSM application, Massachusetts DOT, who uses the Scoped app, and also MIT Sloan School of Business, who uses the Scoped app, which was actually built by GlideFast as well. So ultimately, the decision was made to use CSM. Some of the reasons here, the primary reason was that a lot of the business for financial affairs was dealing with external customers, so people outside of Boston University. These could be potential vendors, current vendors. They also had a need for an external facing portal, which also came with the CSM application. The case management lifecycle fit perfectly with financial affairs business process. So the concept of just getting a case into a new state, getting it assigned out and having that case listed as open, gathering more information from the customer in the awaiting info state, and then ultimately resolving and closing that case. And lastly, also workflows and auto assignment. That was another key benefit to using CSM. So the GlideFast engagement. Actually, I'm gonna pause here real quick. I meant to send out a poll. Not sure if that was already sent, but I was curious to see how many of you, the attendees here, are using a one or more shared mailbox to manage customer inquiries or questions. And yeah, it looks like the poll's up now. So yeah, back to the presentation, GlideFast engagement. So we started with an initial engagement to capture business and technical requirements from Boston University, their IS&T team, as well as the financial affairs team. And then our second engagement was the delivery and development of the CSM application. So the whole project consisted of the CSM application implementation. We created a service catalog with several catalog items for financial affairs. We created a user portal for external customers as well as internal. And then also we had a few external forms, which were publicly accessible forms that didn't require any kind of authentication to submit. So some of the, we'll talk about some of the customizations and configurations we made on this project. So one of the customizations here, was using the user table versus the contact table. And by that, I mean, so in the baseline CSM application, you have a contact field, which typically references a contact table, which is an extension of the user table. The idea behind the contact table is that these would all be external users or external individuals outside of the Boston University network. This didn't quite fit the need for financial affairs because they also worked with internal BU individuals as part of their business process. So we needed the ability to be able to select internal BU individuals as well as external contacts. So since the contact table is extended from the user table, we just simply reference the user table instead. That allowed us to select internal users, external users, and we didn't require, for example, internal users to manage two different accounts. They could use the same login and have the same user record that we're using for case management as well as on the ITSM side. For external forms, so we had to make a couple forms publicly accessible. This was mainly used for vendors or potential vendors for financial affairs. And we'll get into more detail with this, but basically external form, publicly accessible, and we used Google's reCAPTCHA to prevent any kind of attacks and for human verification. And then lastly, we set up some departmental case access security. So what this allowed us to do was identify which departments the case belonged to. And in addition to that, we set up roles that corresponded with the department choice values so that you could only see the cases in which you are, that belong to your department. So for example, if we have financial affairs and let's say in the future BU Health decided they wanted to use CSM as well. Financial affairs would only see their cases, and then once BU was onboarded or BU Health was onboarded, they would only see the BU Health cases. Now that doesn't mean that that's how it has to be restricted forever. So let's say for some reason financial affairs also needed to see BU Health cases, it would just be a matter of granting that role to the correct individual or group, and then they would have access to now both department cases. So key decisions and success factors. So some of the key decisions here, we had to decide on whether we wanted to use a single portal or the current portal, current IT portal, or use separate portals, one for IT and then a new one for financial affairs. We decided on using a separate portal for financial affairs, mainly because the branding was completely different, the customers were different, and the needs were just different overall. And thinking into the future, when other departments would be onboarded, they most likely are going to be requesting the same, their own flavor of branding and requirements. So the path forward here is that new departments coming in, if they required a portal, they would get their own portal. Another big decision here, which I'll admit I was surprised with this decision, was that we are not going to allow email intake to create cases. So I say I'm surprised with this because that's usually a big hurdle for a lot of companies to say, customers are so used to sending emails right now, we are just going to cold turkey and cut them off. And that's pretty much what we did here. We said we're gonna send out the portal, the links to the portal, educate customers on how to submit requests through the portal, and no longer accept the emails or no longer allow email for case creation. Next, we have success factors. So the biggest success factor here was a strong client lead. We worked very well with the stakeholder from financial affairs as well as the IS&T team. Any issues that came up, we were able to just move right through them. The stakeholder from financial affairs was very willing to adapt and change their process a bit to make sure things work correctly in the system and get away from any kind of significant customizations that would impact them in the future. Handoff document and a repeatable process. So this goes to a little bit about the department case access. So BU did want an easy way to onboard other departments onto CSM if that need was there. So we came up with that solution where we can easily add a new department, which was just a matter of adding a new choice to the choice field. It would require creating a group that represented that department. It would require creating a role which we attach to that group, and then they're pretty much off from there. We also provided it within that documentation, the basics of the portal that we created for financial affairs, and that kind of showed, how to change key pieces of the portal, and easily stand up a new portal for a new department. And then lastly, the service catalog. So since we split up the service catalog by department, so financial affairs had their own, the plan forward there would be that other departments, assuming that those catalog items were specific in terms of functionality and business use to that department, then every department would have their own service catalog.
So GlideFast built out the customer portal with the financial affairs branding, and then users with the BU login can come in here, view knowledge articles, open cases, or view existing cases. Next. So because BU has a single sign-on implemented, they needed some external forms where customers didn't need a login to submit the form. These forms were created by placing the UI pages on the syspublic table and then making record producers or variables public using the public role. And then when someone fills out these forms, it takes that email address provided, checks the context table, and to see if there's an existing record. If there's no existing record, a new one is created for that email, and then any existing or future cases will get linked together using that email. And then because these external users can't log in to BU's system, the financial affairs agents would communicate with the external users via the additional comments, which then triggered an email. And then the external users could reply to that email, and their response would automatically get captured in the additional comments on the record. Next. So for internal forms, we created for users that did have a BU account, and this allowed variables to be pre-populated with user information, and then it also allowed them to view cases within the portal. Next. So when you're creating forms, there's a lot of things that you want to consider. You want to prioritize what you need. What are your frequently requested items? What are your existing and well-defined processes? What are your critical services? You don't need everything built out at once, but start with what's most important to you, and then continue to expand as you grow. You want to ensure process owners are involved in the development. Demo what you build along the way to ensure that their expectations are met, or if you need any more modifications. Keep naming conventions consistent. You don't want users confused about what forms to fill out or what information to provide. And then as you build, consider any workflows or automation you want to add, and determine if you should use variables or variable sets. So variable sets are reusable and can be added to forms quickly. It also provides a single place to update, which you would then apply to every form that uses the variable set. But if you have a field that's kind of unique or has a unique function, you probably don't want to include that in a variable set. You want to keep questions simple and understandable, and make sure you ask all of the necessary questions upfront so agents can resolve the case as quickly as possible. And use categories so users can find what they need quickly, and user criteria to limit who can access certain forms or certain knowledge articles. Next. So now we're going to kind of jump into a demo, show you how you can kind of quickly expand your catalog. We'll create a record producer, a new category, user criteria, and a knowledge article. Top, could you stop sharing?
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Thank you. All right, can everyone see my screen? All right, so right now we have just your out-of-box standard customer service portal where users can come in and create cases. So you have different categories and different forms that they can go to create a case. So now if we go into the back end, we're going to create a record producer to add another form for them. So this create case is the standard out-of-box one. So if you had a record producer that you wanted to use a lot of the same functionality, what you could do is you can copy it. Why aren't you opening up? But you can actually copy the record producer, and that would actually copy all the variables and any of the other related list items. And then you can modify it from there. So if you hit this copy button,
Hey Tiffany, do you
Yep,
mind zooming in just slightly?
sure thing.
I may not because my eyes are growing out, but it might, some people might need to see the text a little bit better. Perfect.
Is
Anyone else
this,
can let us. I think that maybe one more. We can have people submit if it's good. Yeah, that's great. I think that looks good. Thank you.
all right, yeah, no problem. So this created like a copy of this record producer, and it also copied all of the variables and client scripts and everything like that. So you could continue to build and modify from there if you had one that you wanted to replicate. But we're gonna just create a brand new one. So we're gonna create one for invoice discrepancies. So this will allow a user to select a company and the specific contact they want for that case. And then we'll also allow them to submit whatever invoices that they're having some issues with. So we're going to put it on the customer service case table. And we're going to hit save. This allows us just to stay in this record producer instead of getting redirected if we hit submit button. And I'm just going to create a favorite real quick because as I'm developing, I always like to just have a quick way back to the item that I'm working on. So we're going to create some variables and variable sets. So I'm going to first create a variable. It's going to be a reference field, and it's going to be for the account. And that's going to be looking at the account table. And then we're going to have a filter. So we're going to want it to be where the customer is true. And then we can actually specify a default value if we want. So we can go ahead and put in whatever the company that currently the current user is logged in, their company. And we're going to put an order of 100. So it'll be the first item on our form. We're actually going to map it to the specific field in the back end. So it's going to map to the account table, account field on the case table. Let me go ahead and hit submit. And then we're going to create another variable. This is going to be for the contact. And so it's going to be another reference field. And for this, we're just going to put the customer contact. And for this, we're going to use an advanced one. So this is one that I actually just took off of that add a box record producer field. So always, reuse what you can. So this is actually going to look at the account field on the form, and it'll pull back all of the contacts that are associated with that company, with that account. And then for this, we can also have it just kind of auto-populate first to the current logged in user. And then we'll set this order for 200. That should be good. Oh, I forgot to actually map it to the field, so we can go back in. And so this is actually going to go map to the contact table, contact field on that table. And because I am allowing the user to change the account and the specific contact, I'm going to want to add in a client script that clears the contact field if the account changes. So I'll just call this clear. We're going to do an on change of the account variable. And in here, I'm just going to do gform dot clear value, and then the variable that I want to clear contact. And I'm going to set that to all so it applies to both the front end and the back end. And hit submit. So now anytime someone changes that account field, it's going to clear the value of the contact field. Next, I'm going to make some variable sets. So if you had existing variable sets, you could come in here and just hit edit and then pull over which items that you wanted on this field or on this form. But we're going to go ahead and create a new one. So right now we're just going to create a single row variable set. I'm going to name it priority short. So I'm going to have the priority field and the short description in here. And then we can go ahead and go back to that priority and create the variables. And because I'm putting both of these variables in the same variable set, they will always be together in the location of the form. So you can't separate them out when you're changing the layout. If you did want them to be able to be separate, they would have to be in their own variable set. So I'm going to name it priority and have it as the first one. And because this is in a variable set, it doesn't have that map to field option. But if you name the variable the same name as the field on the actual table, it'll map to it. And I need to make this a select box. And the choice table, I'm actually just going to use that case table and the priority field, so it automatically brings over which choice fields are on that table. And I'm going to have the default value be 4, so that's the lowest priority. And we can go ahead and submit that. And then the next field, I'm just going to do a short description. So I'll probably do like a multi-line text. And again, naming it the same name as on the table. And I'm going to put that as order 200. I'm going to hit submit. And then I need to change the order of the variable set that I want as well. But I'm going to actually just go back to that record producer real quick. So right now, my first two variables are at 100 and 200. So I'm going to make this one order 300. So it's the next item. And as you're building, you can hit try to see how the layout's coming if you need to modify it. And then lastly, I'm going to make another variable set. I'm going to make this one a multi-row variable set. And this is going to allow us to enter in multiple invoices and problems. So I'm going to name it invoice and issue. And for the variable set attributes, I'm going to do max rows equals, let's do 10. So this only allows them to enter in 10 items. And we can go back into that variable set and create some variables. So the first one, I'm going to create just a single line text. It's going to be the first one on there, and I'm going to name it invoice. And then I'm also going to say it can only be numbers, because for my invoice, I know it's always going to be numbers. And then we go ahead and submit that. And then we're going to have an option, let's do a select box. and it can be for what kind of error they're having with that invoice. We can have it be 200. We can hit save just so we can stay on this record. Then we're going to make some choice options for them. So we can say like overcharge and duplicate and let's say other. We can change the order of these two to show which order we want the choices to be in. And then the next one, let's put like a description field for each of the invoices. So we can do another single line item and put details. And say maybe for this, I only want them to be able to put in, say, a maximum of 75 characters in that field. So now that we have that multi-row variable set up, we can go ahead back to the record producer, see how it's starting to look. Oh, so I see I need to change the order around again. So I'm going to want that invoice issue to be last. So we can go back in and make this order 400. And so now right now, we only have it not available for external users. So we can go ahead and make a new available for criteria. And let's say I only want this to be for specific users within a specific company. So we can go ahead and select that. So now this user criteria will only show this form to users that have that company. And then we can go ahead and get rid of this not available for, because I don't want people to be excluded from this. And then we can also add it to a specific catalog. So we already have an existing one, so we'll put the customer service catalog. And then we can go ahead and also create, create a new category for it, and we can call it invoices. And we can select the catalog that's going to be on and hit submit. So now when we come back to the portal, we should see the new category, invoices. We can also see that new record producer that we created. So it's invoice discrepancies. Then we can come back here. So with the multi-row variable set that I created, what I want to do is I want to bring all of that information and put it in the description field on the case. So what I can go and do is I can iterate over that multi-row variable set and then take each item and push it into the description. So what I did here was I made a variable and I'm parsing the specific multi-row variable set. So it's producer dot whatever your variable set item is. And then I also made a description, blank array. And then for every item that is in that multi-row variable, I'm going to push this item into this empty array. So it's going to be invoice and then whatever that specific invoice was on that row, error, and then details, whatever that details field was. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to join all the items to make it just a single text field, but then they're going to be on new lines within the description. So we can go ahead and save that. And now we should be able to go ahead and test this out to see how it would look for a user. So right now I'm going to impersonate a generic employee. So right now it's auto-populating with the person that I am impersonating, Carl, and then same thing, auto-populating with his account. But because his account has lower subcounts, he can go ahead and change that. So if he changes it, you can see that it's going to clear out that contact field like we want. And then it only shows which contacts are associated with that specific account. So we can go ahead and select that specific item. The priority field was auto defaults to number 4, but we can go ahead and change it if we want. So we have short description. Please fix these invoices. And so this is the multi-row variable set that we created. So we can go ahead and add some of the items. So if I tried to add in some letters, it's saying it's not a number because we had that checkbox to say only allow numbers. And we can go ahead and add in the invoice number. And we're going to say this is going to be a duplicate of, you can say duplicate of invoice 1, 2, 3, 4. We can go ahead and add that. Then we can continue to add whatever other invoice issues we have problems for. We can say this is going to be an overcharge of line 5. And then you can come in here and hit that pencil icon if you need to make any edits to it in case you had a typo or anything like that. And you can also hit that X button to remove that specific row. Let's do another, the overcharged one again. And so once that's all finished, we can go ahead and submit. We can see how that information transferred over to the case. So we can come back in here, go back to impersonating the admin account. We can go ahead into the cases and come into the case. And so you can see the account was mapped over, the contact was mapped over, the priority was mapped over. You have the short description, and then in the description, it's showing each of the invoices that I had problems for. And then if you wanted to create a knowledge article for users that are wondering how they can go ahead and submit information on discrepant invoices, you can go ahead and create a knowledge article. So we're going to key. And since we created that user criteria, and this form is kind of only for that specific company, we can go ahead and put in that user criteria to say who can read it. And then we can go ahead and put in whatever body of text that we want. This is an HTML field, so you can go ahead and put in a lot of different things and format it as you'd wish. And then we're going to actually come back here real quick. So we can actually get the URL, so we can actually redirect them directly from this knowledge article. and we can call it just form. And we can go ahead and submit that. And then I'm going to publish it, and then you should be able to now search for it on the portal. So if you come back in here, so you can see we have the knowledge article that I created. And this is how it would be displayed with whatever text that you had. And I'm going to have a link to that form. Oh. I guess, oh, because maybe I'm not associated with that. Let me try. Not sure why. Oh, you know what? I think I might have typed in the wrong catalog item URL. Let me try that again. Let's go back in here. Let's go back to that knowledge article. You can go ahead and make sure this link is correct. Hopefully it is. Oh, you know what? I think I had a previous knowledge article that wasn't going there correctly. And so it brings you to that discrepant invoice form now. And so as you're building, you definitely use, reuse as much as you can and keep, everything as consistent as possible. But that's all I kind of have for this demo. So I'll hand the controls back over.
Great, thanks, Tiffany. Excellent. So thank you, Top. Thank you, Tiffany, for an great presentation and demo. Getting some kudos coming in here. So for all of you still on the phone, let's definitely send it over some more questions. We did have a few come in that Top did respond to, but I'm thinking we can go through a couple of those so everyone can kind of hear and see the responses. So we can start from the top. So the first one that came in was from Michelle. Thanks, Michelle. And it said, she asked, can you give some examples of catalog items for the financial department where they use for internal use? So Top, if you wanted to talk through that answer that you provided.
Yeah, so I had a couple examples there. One was credit card payment enablement. So as another department within BU, they can request for the ability to accept credit card payments for their department, and that would go through the financial affairs group. Another one is a credit card refund. So if a refund needs to be processed for some payment, they could submit that refund request through the financial affairs catalog.
Excellent. All right, and we had another question. It was, after the change, online ticket creation only, what happened to emails sent to the deprecated email addresses? Was it an autoresponder that was set up?
Yeah, so the emails are still going into the mailboxes. An autoresponder was used to share the link to the portal. The mailboxes initially were still being monitored during the transition phase, although I don't know what has happened since then, if those mailboxes have been deprecated completely or not. But that is something I'll follow up with BU to find out.
Sounds good. They'd probably like to hear from you again.
Yeah.
Excellent. And then another question, did you do address verification such as click here to verify your email address with those auto-created accounts from the public portal?
So for this implementation, we didn't, although that is a great solution if we want to ensure the accuracy of that email address. we talked about it for a little bit, and we ended up following kind of how a lot of the other forms work online. So anywhere where you're registering a new account, where you put in like a user ID or you put in an email address, usually it only asks for that entry once, unlike your password where it asks for double entry just to ensure accuracy. So we kind of went with that method and just assumed that the person entering the email address was entering it correctly the first time.
Perfect. All right, and then actually Michelle sent over a follow-up question to her previous catalog question, and it's, since each department has their own service catalog, does the maintenance of the catalog items stay in the department?
Yeah, so during our engagement with BU, the maintenance of the catalog items still remained within the BU ServiceNow team. So I don't think there was a plan to try and transition the maintenance piece of it, of the service catalog or the service of the catalog items, to the individual departments. I know it was talked about for a little bit, although I think it's a much bigger process to take on with education, knowledge transfer of how to manage catalog items and training and things like that. If I think hopefully eventually they can get to that place, but right now it's still being all managed within the ServiceNow team there.
Great. Michelle said thanks for it. So, and then Todd, we have one that just came in regarding like challenges with industry. So the question is, what are some of the challenges higher education customers face that are different than other industries? Kind of putting it on the spot.
Yeah. So, I've worked with just a couple higher ed customers. I don't know. I don't want to say this specific to higher ed, but just from what I noticed, it did seem like when working with higher ed and the implementations there and the requirements there, they were much more willing to give the customers what they wanted rather than trying to push back. So that, luckily with Boston University, as long as we were able to communicate, why we should push back here, the ServiceNow team also was on our side, and if it all made sense, we were able to relay that back to financial affairs. And there might have been one or two requirements that was an absolute need where we tried to push back, and they came back and said, no, this is really why we need it. And we ended up delivering it. But for the most part, I've seen in other places where more enterprise organizations where they have their set standard. This is how they're going to deliver the requirements. But it does seem like higher ed, they're more willing to take in the customer requirements as is and deliver exactly what they want.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. It doesn't look like we have any questions, additional ones. So thank you everyone for joining us here until the end of the webinar. Thank you, Top and Tiffany. Incredible presentation. Now I will open it up to announce the giveaway winner.
Drum roll. Yeah,
drum roll. All right. So thank you, Jonathan Tyson, for staying until the end and joining us today. You are the winner of the $50 Visa gift card. So congratulations. We'll email you the prize directly. So thanks again and congrats. And if you didn't win today, don't be discouraged. Every on-air webinar you attend for both GlideFast and our sister company Farracode counts as an entry into our on-air grand prize giveaway. So we're giving one of these mirror workout mirrors. So really nice if you're spending more time at home and still want to get in a good workout, and it's a $1,500 value. So do 10 more on air. We have these running until the end of June. Love to see you on some additional ones. And with that, thank you everyone for attending again. We really hope you enjoyed this session. If you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to us on social media. We'll be sending this recording via email to all of you, so you can also respond directly to that email, and we can get you in contact with Top or Tiffany or anyone else on the team for some follow-up questions. So thank you again. If you want to see more of our sessions that are coming up, you can visit glidefast.com/glidefast-on-air, and you can see our whole programming and reach out to our team via our website and anywhere else on the internet. So thank you, everyone. I don't know, Tiffany and Top, you want to jump in and find some final last words?
No, just yeah, thank you. Thanks everyone for participating and joining in.
Yep, yeah, same. No, thank you, everyone.
Great. All right. Thank you, everyone, and have an excellent rest of your day.